are really live.
Usually we would be, so
I'm looking at my
yes, we are live. Hi everyone, good evening.
okay. Just a minute. Just a minute. Okay, we're going live, and of course, we are now live. Are you ready to start, my dear?
Yes, we are.
Okay, I shouldn't be calling you my dear, but that's good. People to
Yeah, we had a break and we kind of forget, huh?
yeah. Okay, let's start. Okay, welcome to Say It With Love, our podcast where love's deepest questions meet profound answers. My name is Frederick, and joining me is my amazing co-host, the wonderful Eunice. We're both educators, and in this episode, we're going to talk about how we can educate with love to support the learning of newer generations that is living in an era of instant gratification. But of course, last week we have talked about that, and we are in the continuation mode this week. Not rather last week. No, we took a break. We took a break for a week. I almost forgot. We took a break for a week, and that was like 2 weeks ago when we were at this episode. But nonetheless, in this episode, we are going to talk about something that is related, but it's also a new topic. And this is going to be about understanding your students' learning style. In our previous episode, we discussed the different stages of a child's development, which is cognitive, emotional, and social development. And I remember we touched a lot on cognitive development because it's so important for a child in this aspect of cognitive growth. And moreover, I think we also talked about instant gratification that kids these days have in general, but also we will be talking more about emotional and social growth in this episode as promised 2 weeks ago. We took a week's break, and I think because I guess we are preparing for this new season that we're in. We're in season three, ladies and gentlemen.
Mm-hmm.
So in this new season, we're going straight into the full force into our education series. And of course, in this episode, we'll also be touching on the different learning styles as per the title. And these are what we call the different learning styles of different students in and outside the classroom. So yeah, welcome, my Eunice. welcome.
All right, hi everyone. So I think it's so crucial for us to first understand how our children or our students best learn. That will actually save us a lot more time rather than just drilling from all angles and they're not getting anywhere. Right, so
Exactly.
it's always best for us to get them assessed, and there are a lot of quizzes available. To if you just keep click on any link, you go and Google search any link about learning style, you may end up in one of the quiz. You can allow your child to do that quiz, or you can do it with them to determine their learning style. Of course, as we evolve, the learning style will evolve as well, which means that I wasn't an auditory learner. I was much younger because I tend to have very I think I was insensitive to sound back then. But over the years, because of the nature of my job, sometimes I run out of time. I may be listening to podcasts. Then I kind of train myself to be more auditory. So it's not a fixed thing. How
Mhm.
it's good to have the awareness. What is the best learning approach for your child or your student? Um, to cater best for their learning experience right now.
Mhm.
Okay, so let us look at the different learning styles and how they evolve from toddlers to teenagers these days, right? Learning is not one size fit all thing.
No,
Yeah,
it's yep.
yeah, the process differs from one individual to another. However, because we're in school, school teaches in the way it is set to be, right? We have lesson plans, we have strategies, and yet it may not fit everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So the key is actually understanding the best way that these students and figure out what helped them to learn better. So let's look at the toddler, a preschooler, elementary school child, or a teen. Whether it at any age, this applies. The thing that we're talking about, learning style, applies. So let's start with all the basics. The three primary styles are visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. Recently, the latest one would be the one that is considered as R, which is reading and writing. Some students actually will benefit more if they tend to read a lot and write a lot.
We call this tactile learning.
Yes, tactile learning, exactly.
Mm.
So this is what has been focused on a lot in traditional approach of school, traditional approach
Yeah.
schools, I would say. Um, However, in most schools right now, they are evolving into more tech-based learning, and therefore we're looking at how we can integrate both in the balance of helping students to achieve the best outcome possible. Right now,
Mhm.
let us look at the first one that are majority students or children actually goes into this category, which are visual learners, and they learn best through seeing. So they understand and remember better when it's presented in pictures, diagrams, mind maps, anything that are colorful, because the brain loves colors. Yeah, so these are the key things for visual learners. And
Yeah.
then for auditory learners, definitely the one that can listen. And these are the students that you will catch them like not talking. They
Mhm.
would be literally not looking at you at the back of the class. They may be doing something else, or they may
Uh-huh.
be like fidgeting, or they don't have eye contact. But when you call them out and you ask them questions, they can answer you in
Mhm.
return. These are likely the students that can learn very well through listening, and they absorb
Mhm.
information from discussions, explanations, and verbal instructions. Of
Yeah.
course, we do encourage them to focus, as in to have eye contact to someone that they are listening to, because that's part of social skill that we also want to introduce to them as a part of having a respectful conversation. So
Mhm.
therefore it is also important for us to encourage them to have eye contact when they are in a class setting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the most challenging ones would
Oh
be the
yeah.
kinesthetic learners. That's
Kinesthetic, right?
Yeah,
Mm.
kinesthetic also inclusive, not just movements. I wasn't one of those that move a lot, but I do space out a lot, and I need to learn by application. I cannot just do theory. I need practicals to understand a concept much more better on deeper level. So I was that child that asked a lot of why, that some adults thought I was annoying because they couldn't answer my questions, and
Mhm.
I had to be the one that dig through stuff myself,
Mhm.
and study in depth so that I get more information to understand certain things. Therefore, it's so important to understand kinesthetic students are not here to challenge us as teachers or educators or parents. Rather, they are filled with curiosity, and they don't grasp the idea or information very well if they don't have practicals to them. Yeah.
All right.
So what
I
they do best, yes.
think before that, I think I'm just gonna share this slide. Not a slide, but a website which I got from. It's a very good website. It's that I got from the learningstylequiz.com. For some of you who would like to check it out, it's the first thing that comes up on Google when I actually typed in the search terms for learning style for
Mhm.
students. Just type learning style for students, and this is the website that you can get to check it out. There are three base learning styles, like what it's been stated up there, and it's visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. I believe there are more than just three learning styles because these are the three main learning styles that
Yes.
have been pretty common. I'm not sure about tactile learning because tactile learning can be a mismatch of your visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. So it's kind of like mixed into each of these three basic learning styles, which
Exactly.
I kind of agreed as well because we don't just have one learning styles, we have more than one.
Yeah.
And it really depends on which ones are the one that you it's your primary style,
Yes.
and do note that you have personality based learning style as well because it's every child has their own personality, and it really depends on what kind of personality you embody. Like you can be an INTJ, for example. They learn by experiments. Probably they have their own way of figuring things out from young, and that's where you actually understand how he or she learn. I think it takes time for one to figure that out, especially
Yes.
when you are guiding a child. I believe, Eunice, you are a more experienced teacher than I am, so you probably know how this works.
Yeah. Okay, I was at kinesthetic
Okay.
previously, so this group of students definitely, or learners, they need hands-on activities and physical movement to fully understand concepts. Like example, like in my school, the fun part of whatever we do in our classes is that to grasp the idea of say a topic like teamwork in the SI class, which I'm teaching social intelligence. They would have to conduct an activity, as in I just give them um, some pieces of paper, and then I ask them to figure out um, the best way to build a paper tower, and you have to figure it out yourself.
Hmm.
So at the end of it, they figured out, wouldn't it faster or taller if I were to combine with someone else? And I'm gonna work this, and I'm gonna negotiate my way out of it, on that, so that I can achieve the tallest paper tower.
Hmm.
Yeah. So this is some form of hands-on activities that allow them to think out of the box what I'm trying to achieve. I didn't even brief them on the objective of the activity at the very beginning of it, because at the end of it, they would have to figure it out what was the lesson and what they have observed, where they are going to feed back to me instead of me feeding them with information, which is so much more like traditional way of spoon feeding information. And when you do that, most of the time you will find that the learners or the students do not take in as much as information as you have shared, because that will be like, just imagine yourself having a limited storage capacity at one point of time, and we, as a teacher, as an educator, we feed them with a lot of information at one time. How much do you think they can grasp?
That's
um,
information overload, really. Shouldn't be.
yes, it will be an overload, especially when they are not interested or they are lost in the middle, right? So it is not about how much information we give them, it's about how much they learn at the end of the day. So how much they learn is actually really depending of how much, when we talk about learning, what is really learning? Learning is not just about information. It is actually learning the information that um, make them understand how they can possibly apply in real life,
Hmm.
right? So that is real, true, meaningful outcome of a learning process. So now, when we talk about these base learning styles, you're right. Their personality plays a big part of their learning styles as well. You are also right about which one is a combination of all. It's not exclusive.
Yeah.
Rather, usually we learn with a combination of all, but there will be a dominant one out of these three. So for
Yeah.
myself, the dominant one would be kinesthetic,
Mm-hmm.
next to visual, and the last to auditory. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so that is my learning style. And kinesthetic learners thrive when you do a lot more storytelling that evoke some form of emotional connection or
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
emotions in them,
Mm-hmm.
that they will somehow remember information better. And also, when you ask them to like build a model or a scrapbook, perhaps out of
Mm-hmm.
scratch, with the information that they have, those information are more likely to stick with them. So they need to touch and feel to get most out of their learning process. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So
interesting because you mentioned about touching and feeling to kind of learn better, and some of them they learn through, just thinking and making intelligent guesses and stuff like that. I think it reflects on what is shown here on this slide itself. It talks about the personality-based learning styles because um, we what we see here are MBTI personality. And it makes sense because when we look at the 16 personality styles, we all have our 16 personality style. And one of them is actually the main dominant personality. And
mm,
that reflects how we learn too. Because if you look at the first of the four sets, which is E and I, one is introverted, the other one is extroverted. So when you're talking about introversion and extroversion, do you learn better in an environment where it's quiet, or you learn better with other people? And that shows about your social kind of ability, or your social. It tells us more about where your social development is, or
yeah,
it tells us a
social
little
preference
more.
too.
Yeah, it tells us more about your preferences to with people or without people, or just being alone. And some people learn better alone in a quieter environment, and some people learn better with people around, with their partners, with their peers, and that's why they have the learning exchange. And it really depends on that style. And if you look at N and S, which is the second tier, or rather the second group, N and S, one is intuition, the other one is sensing. So sensing is more on the five senses, and people learn with five senses. They're more like the more towards the realistic kind of style, hands-on and pragmatic kind. And if you are the hands-on kind of kid, then you probably belong to the S personality, not the N
Mhm.
personality. Because people with the N personality, they are more research based and they are more inquisitive. That's my guess. And
Mm,
because they're using their minds all the time, that's the reason why. So when we go to the third group, which is the T and the F, one is the thinking and the other one is the feeling group, right? So are you a thinking learner, or are you an affective learner? Okay, people learn by affection, by emotions, is where storytelling works, like what you've mentioned just now, storytelling. Pretty good, right? Some
mhm.
people are thinkers, like cognitive learners. They learn through learning by the book,
Yeah.
by the book. And that's where they get the most information. And it really depends on, it depends on your personality as well. The last one would be P and J. So are you someone who learns things better with organized notes, or you learn things better with mind maps? So if you learn things better with mind maps, you're probably a P, like a perceptive, perceiving individual, or you learn things better with organized notes. You are more towards the judging kind of personality. So these are really interesting style on how you learn. Very interesting stuff about how you learn, and these are going to be playing a part in your,
Yes.
in your growth, cognitive growth, social growth, and emotional growth as a learner.
Yes.
And I believe that knowing these will help you have a gauge, like where your students lie. Like if you can do a personality test, this personality test can be found on learningstylequiz.com, the one that I just found. learningstylequiz.com. So you can just go there and figure out how to, how to understand your students' learning style better. And I think this is a very good resource. There are other resources as well.
Yes, absolutely. This is one of them. And as you were talking about the notes part, those are tactile learners, which means they fare very well when they do make a lot of notes, in writing and reading a lot more. So for them to learn, they have to do this. And actually, when I was in university, because of my I have very short memory span.
Mhm.
So tactile was the way to go for me as I was rewriting my notes. I find that I uh, get some information to stick better
Mhm.
than just reading through them or just drawing. Of course, drawing itself also help in mind map form, but I wasn't so good at it back then. So that was something I missed out. So now that I'm using a lot more visual for my students, so that they have better idea of how they can expand their ideas um, from the bare minimum, right? So yeah, I mean, this is the thing. What we want to really assimilate, or what we really want to apply for learners, especially at the youngest age, at toddlers,
Mhm.
so in preschool age, it would have to combine all of these methods so that they are exposed to them as much as possible. Then they end up being more adaptable when they grow up. So, however, if somehow a child is exposed to a lot of videos at the very beginning of their first few years, that will somehow um, slow down or delay their learning approach. I would say the adaptability to other approaches, because they are so used to having fast movements, fast visuals, fast rewards in terms of instant gratification from videos.
Mhm.
And therefore, now we do find, as educators, we do find that we are getting more and more challenges in keeping the students' attention span.
Mm.
Because, yeah,
This is an epidemic, I would say, because I call this the attention epidemic. I guess as we move on into the future, there will be more
mm,
technologies that's going to take the place of books, and of course,
and
books
teachers.
like nobody reads these days, right? You ask any students, right? They will tell you no, they don't really read so much books and all that. But there is one way that we can probably try, which is to give them an app, on the phone or on the iPads. Probably you can use the app that helps them listen to what the book is reading, right? Like you have a reading book, a book that reads by itself. They call it the audio
Yes.
book.
Yes.
And if you can give them some audiobooks to play and they'll just listen to it, I know it works very well for auditory learners, but it's also working. I believe it works well with visual learners too, because as they are playing, they can look at the book and they can look at what's written on the book as they listen to whatever that has been read up to them, and
Mhm, mhm,
they can kind of like figure out what the book was talking about. So I believe this would be the remedy for
mm,
whatever challenges that teachers are facing. And I know sometimes teacher would just be like, oh, you got to read more, to be familiarized, to get yourself familiarized with the language, whatever language
mm.
you're trying to learn. Um, but you got to, pick up the new habit. But sometimes it just doesn't help these days because people don't really read a lot. And I
Yeah.
think audiobook is the answer. That is what I feel. I mean,
Yeah,
feel free,
yes and no, I would say.
feel free to express your disagreement or agreement to whatever I said, because, yeah, because you probably have your own way of doing it, like your own methods. Because
Yeah, I mean, because if I were to go by age group,
mm,
that will be a different perspective from different angles, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's a yes and no. Yes, it's for older learners. I would say that would be for teens,
Mm-hmm.
for primary students like above 7. I would say, like for in fact for 1 or 3, you want to encourage the little toddlers, the little preschoolers to explore more with their senses. So because they are developing, in terms of cognitive wise, they are still they are still exploring with their senses. So we need to introduce all of them, and so we need to stimulate all of their senses. So it's so important that we do have this foundation for them so that they are more adaptable in the future. And that's
Mm-hmm.
why I believe, as technology evolve, of course they are exposed more to the digital, kind of tools to help them to learn. However, we cannot take away those very traditional, I wouldn't say traditional, those back to basic kind of learning tools.
Mm.
Like at this age, toddlers respond very well to bright colors, pictures, and simple shapes. So
Mm.
when it comes to simple shapes, the kind of toy that you kind of put them together into the box, like those cubes. I don't remember what they call them, the shape thing. Those are or sorting games, you call them, right? It is so important for them to feel, oh, this is the shape of a star, and this is a color,
That's the
and
thing. That's the thing because I like it or not, some of the kids do not play those anymore.
yes.
They no longer touch such toys. They
Yes,
touch the iPads more than touching these toys.
exactly.
And
So,
we grew up with that. We grew up with that. But kids these days they don't touch these toys anymore. Nobody knows how a toy feels like.
I bet a lot of kindergartens do allow these children, but how much time they are allowed, or how much more, how interested the students are, is really back to the environment that they are given. So if you don't have gadgets that much, I mean, or you kind of limit the access to gadgets in the school, or in wherever they are in the daycare, all right.
Yeah.
So then they will be given this space with toys. You will be surprised because with no distraction from gadgets,
Hmm.
they will explore all these things. They may be throwing, they may be biting, licking, or whatever, but those
That's
are
true.
the way they explore with their senses.
Yeah, and parents, please
So,
let us know in the comments. I mean, just interact with us. Let us know how do you expose your children to learning at their best
mm,
with without iPad these days. How do you
mm.
do that? How do you educate them without iPad? I mean, iPads have been in the curriculum for studies, and your kids
Yeah.
need them in schools. But how do you do that without iPad? I mean, if they're on the iPads all the time, this could spell a little bit of trouble, especially with their, with one part of their development stage, which I think it's quite crucial. I
Hmm.
don't know what stage to call that, but it's like uh,
Preschooler stage.
it's not that it's how do we call that? It's like when you're growing up, and if you are so digitalized, you are so fixated on your iPads and other digital and electronic device, it's going to affect your social learning skills. It's going to affect your way of perceiving the world around
Mhm.
you, and you're so stuck into looking at the iPads and the iPhones and all your gadgets, and you don't really know what's going on around you.
Mm.
And situational awareness becomes an issue. It will become an issue.
It is already an issue right
And
now.
it's a big concern. It's a big concern.
It is.
So parents, what do you do? Right? I'm curious to know. I'm really curious to know. Just let me know. Let us know in the comments. I mean, yeah, we'd like to figure this out. Like
Mm.
how do you handle tackle this, for your child?
I know some parents that still encourage um, their children to go for sports, that go for games like chess,
Hmm.
um, um, Lego building, and things like this. They are still very conducive for learning. So we could actually, in fact, we can replace certain screen time with this instead. However, these kind of activities require human to accompany them or to even like transport them, from one place to another so that they can enjoy these activities. So with digitalization, there's a lot more of things that we could do remotely. We do not need to go and invest on toys that, somehow it will clutter the house, and so many reasons to not use them anymore, like cards, like building blocks, and you have a literally we used to have a toy section at home just for us to explore and play with. And then these are the things that we could literally think about whether it is better for us to go back to the basics, or we just replace everything with digital apps and tools. Someone from the IT background, tech background, I really highly recommend and suggest that parents do not just rely on tech, because as tech evolve, there are pros and cons to it, and we know that there are a lot cons if we actually introduce gadgets to your child, to your children or your students at a very young age. So we want to really focus more on human connection, making sure that they are also socially connected before they hit primary. Because um, example right now, if there's a child who wants to buy a toy or wants to buy certain gadget in a toy shop, do you find that they are throwing much more tantrums versus us back in our
That I
years?
don't know.
I guess you don't realize that, but yeah, I mean, because they are seeking instant rewards. I want it now. I cannot wait, and I don't care what you have to say. So this is literally how the children are behaving these days, because they are so gratified towards instant rewards.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
back in my days, if I were to do that, I'll be scolded, whacked, caned, um, told off to the greatest extent, and my parents would have like left me there at the toy shop.
right, and now we are also, parents have a challenge, as in we want to be more supportive. We want to do more of nurturing parenting, and the era has changed and parenting has changed over the years. So therefore, and we want to avoid as much as emotional damage that we could possibly cause to our children. And that
Yeah.
is a part
At
where
what
we
cost?
are trying to balance out right now.
At what cost? Because if you're moving to another spectrum, like another polarity, it can be too
Mhm,
polarized to a point of extreme laissez-faire parenting. That could
mhm.
mean that there is no rule, there is nothing to, hold a child back. They can do whatever, say whatever, no holds bar, and there's definitely nothing, no boundary at all. So if
Um,
you're going for a nurturing and a super nurturing kind, I think that could backfire, because if that's the case, you're going to be so laissez-faire and so freedom and independent giving, you forget the boundary and the discipline and the scolding that has to come with it. Everything has a price. So if you are moving towards nurturing parenting, something has got to go, but something has to stay to make it more moderate.
I
Because
think the balance to have here is, I think, setting the boundaries first, within this perimeter, within the certain boundaries, like there is a boundary, but yet it's not as
Mm-hmm.
restrictive as our parents back in the years, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
We used to be caned, we used to be whacked, like so much so that we resented our parents. We had really bad relationship with our parents. So that was the age where parents were on survival mode. So the only thing they could think of is I need to make enough money to just for the warm meals on the table.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the era we were brought up at. Now in this era, they are quite well. I guess a lot of parents are working in a way to accumulate as much resources as possible for their children at their best. And with that said, parents nowadays have lesser time for the children. And this is the part where we run out of balance, where, the emotional support could be strenuous in a way that, we try to compensate it with gifts, with allowance to certain things. And therefore, now it becoming a bit out of balance where
Mm-hmm.
um, children are meant to push more boundaries, right? They are they are pushing it further and further, and now there's so much freedom that if we actually remember an influencer in Singapore by the name of Amos Yee,
Oh
he
man.
is one of those that push the boundaries to the max, and that's where it gets out of hand. So, for us to have that freedom of voice, freedom of speech, freedom of doing what we love, there is still certain moral ethics and boundaries to it. So, that is where we have to set the bar as a parent, as an educator. We still have certain rules for them to go by. And if it's beyond that rules, we still have to do what we have to do in a way to be firm and to be stern with our students or our children, in a way to make sure they are still safe,
Mm-hmm.
growing safely in this environment. But
Mm-hmm.
how? Yeah, how far do we let that go, right? So yeah, so that is the point where we want to really reflect on. If any one of you don't know Amos, you can literally go and search online. He is a very good case study for us as parents, how we should set our perimeter or our boundaries to give our child the growth, possibility of growth, and at the same time also guide them, to be morally or ethically, be a better person along the way, rather than just letting them grow blow out of proportion at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's something to talk about. That'll be a whole lot other story. That's
Yeah.
about social intelligence in a way, where we talk about it's a lifelong learning skill that we're talking about here.
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree in that. Absolutely. I believe that we have reached a tail end of this episode. And before we conclude this amazing episode, I have a great time talking to you, Eunice. It's like we have discussed and covered points of learning style and how we can kind of have a good gauge of students' learning style and also what led them to become who they are in terms of the way they learn things and absorb things. And in this age of digitalization, there's a lot of things with regards to high end technology and advanced technology that is beyond our control. So sometimes when we are enforcing certain rules or you know trying to get people to learn, like trying to get the students to learn, it's going to be a little bit challenging at times. And I like how we've discussed so far. Of course the discussion can go on and on and on to no end, but there's so much that we can do. I mean, but I believe there are things that we can do better. I mean,
Of
as
course.
educators, and there are definitely things that we can do much better. And definitely there are many other solutions that that we can supplement the problems that we're facing, this what we call attention epidemic that we're having.
Mm,
All right, so I believe that the next episode we are going to touch more on education, but something related to education.
mm-hmm.
What topics going to talk about, but however, whatever it is, um, how are we going to conclude this?
Well, yeah, I mean, overall, it's all about finding the right balance, whether or not what kind of learning style your child or your student have, right? So technology offers incredible opportunities, but it's so essential to ensure that the children have offline experiences that cater to their learning style. So that is the most important thing. So you want to make sure that you find out, you understand your child or your student's learning style, so that it can be empowering for both of you as the parent or educator, so that you can support them in the most natural and effective way, making learning a more enjoyable experience altogether, right? Yep. So again, let's not be discouraged, even though we know this generation is so much more different from our generation. I'm from the boomers. No, I'm from the X Gen X, not the boomers. My parents were boomers. So yeah, we was so different back then, and our Facebook were our what do we call them? Do you have a
We used
book?
to we used to keep diaries. Like we go
Oh yeah,
around the class and say, "Hey, can you write
your
your name and
biography.
your biography?" And we'll just keep it. And some of us will just write shit, you know.
And put
Pardon my French.
pictures, and we put very weird
But oh
poses.
my goodness, we've just revealed our age. Damn.
Right. Well,
All
it's
right,
okay.
enough of
I'm
all
fine
this
with it.
nonsense and jokes. All right, jokes aside. Okay, yeah, and of course, thank you for joining us today. Uh, well, if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, share, and leave a review. We'd love to hear your thoughts and, of course, your comments of any experience that you've had with, with people, with your loved ones, and of course your students. And of course, we love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to reach us out, reach out to us via
Mhm.
our email, which is Fred and Eunice at
Yeah.
gmail.com. Or you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow our individual TikToks at, we have it right here, Learn English with Fred. Let me put it on. Yeah, it's on
Mhm.
our TikToks, Learn English with Fred and A New Teacher's Diary. And of course, YouTube channel, press the bell button, subscribe, thumbs up, give us all these. And you don't have to, but it's free. Just give us a like, give us a subscribe. Go to our social media, check us out, and leave us a comment on Spotify. Okay, I guess we're done with this episode, and until next time, keep
Have a
the
great
conversation
weekend.
going. I know. Have a good weekend too. But of course, let's keep the conversation going and heart centered. Keep striving for deeper connections. And remember, when it comes to relationship and also relationship with your loved ones and your students, it's best to say it with love.
Bye.
All right. So